have been discussed. Numbers had been fleshed out that it was going to be a reduction in pay for Paddy Jackson from 250 grand to 200 grand. But then yesterday afternoon, Sale came out and said, no, this was never confirmed. They've had complaints from MPs and complaints from season ticket holders, and so they were like completely distancing themselves from the notion of signing Jackson and Holding. However, as Rory O'Connor points out, the Australian player James O'Connor was due to sign for Sale, and they were like, no, we're definitely not signing James O'Connor. And then 2 weeks later, they signed James O'Connor. So there's a track record. And there was also the South African scrum half Faf de Klerk, who they issued a statement saying, no, we're not signing Faf de Klerk. 2 weeks later, Faf de Klerk signs for them. So maybe it's flying a kite to see what the response is going to be like from sponsors, from supporters, and from the general public. And if that response is completely negative, you're like, we never meant, no, that wasn't us, that was somebody else.
But they're going to get a negative response wherever it is. At first, there will be a bit of a shitstorm probably to start with Waltner, and then it'll almost be just get on with it. That's what it seems to me how it's going to go. But the lads themselves probably, they're just thinking they're in limbo, aren't they? That as long as this goes, and the more scrutiny that's put on where they're going to go to, then there's putting pressure on the clubs, I suppose. So it's a difficult one, I suppose, for clubs actually to commit themselves and think, we're going to go with it. But we'll see what happens with that one.
I was making the point yesterday that if you're a club and you've decided that you're okay with what's happened in the past and you just want to move forward and sign players at a below market rate, then don't do it now. Wait until just before the season starts. Like you lose nothing by not signing them now, apart from the opportunity to sign them. And really, if any club is actually going to burst in, break the door down and go, no, we have to have these guys now, then they're going to, there's obviously a trade-off that they're willing to take for that. But I don't think a lot of clubs are actually willing to do that. So,
but I maybe judge it maybe in football terms, because if a lad's out of contract and they're not necessarily the most desirable player when they're out of contract, you'll constantly see actually the season starting. So the free agents saying they know full well the clubs that he's like almost like my fallback plan. Exactly. If we don't necessarily, we're not able to get a player, we can actually go and get him at any stage while keeping the player. We want you. Just keeping him right, or keeping him sweet, I suppose.
I think that's exactly it. And as that goes on, the amount of money you have to pay them lessens and lessens and lessens, and they get more desperate to sign for you. So it always seemed to me like there were agents in the background saying, there's a massive market, loads of people want these guys. But what happens then when you don't actually have a signing, the agents end up looking like the boy who cried wolf. It's like, it turns out nobody wants you guys.
Yeah. I know.
And actually, the toxicity around you is so severe that why would we rush it in? The other thing I think is that if I was advising them, you would wait until one of the big teams loses an out half for the season to injury. If you think about, there's like 12 teams in England and 14 teams in. Like one of them is going to need an out half urgently at some point in September.
I understand totally there's going to be so much pressure on the two lads. No matter where they go, there'll be so much pressure, so much scrutiny, as I said earlier on them. But on the flip side of that, what you're saying is that, are they going to be right physically when they go in? Because all of a sudden then they've got to be right physically. Yeah, they'll probably think physically, maybe in myself I'm fine, but have they been taking the hits? Have they necessarily been right to actually step into someone's shoes to say if there's an injury then perform to such a level that you've got to try and maybe, so it masks what's happened in the past and masks maybe the scrutiny that's been around you. That is the fine balance, I think, with this. That's what I'd feel.
And that's why you would try and get, if you were them, try and get them into a club earlier rather than...
If I'm them, I'd probably want to do that. That's what I'd rather do, because I think you've got maybe a little bit, you've got a few weeks to, even if you don't necessarily start one of the early games in the season, then you're actually looking to it and you're thinking, well, I'll tell you what now, I'm going to be fine in 2 or 3 months, rather than trying to hit the ground running where you signed as a big player as a replacement for injury.
And it's in competitive mode straight away. So